My name is Shayla. I'm 33 years old and I was diagnosed with stage 4 colorectal cancer. I am a wife to a firefighter here in Arizona, and I have two boys, ages 4 and 6 years old. As a family, we enjoy just being outside as much as we can. We like to go to the lake. We have an RV, so we like to head up north as much as we can and just go camping with our friends. We're just with the four of us. I had been having symptoms since like high school, a sensitive stomach and getting sick when I would eat certain foods, not feeling good, exhausted. And in high school, I went and got a scope done and everything looked fine. They didn't see anything, didn't diagnose me with anything. So we just kind of chalked it up as a sensitive stomach. And I just kept dealing with that for 10 plus years. And then once I had my kids, we felt a little bit more settled as they got a little bit older. And my husband and I decided like, we need to get to the root of this problem. Like, why are you getting so sick? Why are you constantly not feeling well? I went to one GI doctor and she did a scope and diagnosed me with celiac disease. And she was like, it's kind of like on the fence. So like, let's say you have it. And I just didn't feel reassured by that answer. I cut out gluten and still wasn't feeling great and having huge changes. So I went to another GI specialist, got another scope done. Nothing was definitive from that either. No IBS, Crohn's, celiac, everything came back negative. So we kind of just paused on seeking what the cause of me just feeling not great was. And then there was like 6 months that I was super exhausted. We normally like to get up early and work out or spend time together, have coffee, journal, read. And I was just like dragging. I could not wake up early. My body was so exhausted and I couldn't figure out why. And then I started to have blood in my stool. And that lasted for like 6 to 8 weeks before I said anything because I've always had stomach issues and not felt well. And I just thought it's just a part of that. And internally, I must have like inflammation or something going on. So I just ignored that until I mentioned it to my husband. And he was like, you need to call right away and get that checked out. He had just had a friend within the fire department who had the same symptom, blood in his stool. And that led to a cancer diagnosis. And so for my husband, he took that a little bit more seriously than I did. So went in, got a colonoscopy. They found a few polyps. As I was coming out of sedation, I just remember her saying like, there was one that was like a little bit larger than it should be. And thank goodness you came in now before it turned cancerous. So we were just relieved to hear that. I'm 33, so I shouldn't go in for a routine colonoscopy for another 12 years. And so we were just like, oh man, if I would have waited, that could have been cancer. And so we just left feeling grateful that they removed the polyps. Maybe that would help me feel better. And we caught it before it was cancerous. I got a call 3 days later, from that GI doctor saying that the biopsy had came back cancerous. And she was shocked. It wasn't a large tumor. It wasn't like showing signs of cancer right away from when she was doing the colonoscopy. So she was really surprised that it had come back cancerous. And so she was like, it's kind of, a little bit, a lot, but let's still follow through and let's have you set up with an oncologist. Let's have you do scans. Let's have you do blood work. And my husband and I were kind of like, is that necessary? Like you removed it. It felt like you said that it didn't seem anything extraordinary. That was like this big mass. And so we still went and we did the appointments, just kind of like, it's better just to like kind of do these follow-ups. And from the CT scan, they found some lesions on my liver and my lungs. And they couldn't identify whether that was cancer or not. And then they had me do an MRI and same thing. They couldn't identify if it was the cancer that metastasized or not. And so then I had to do biopsies of both, where they um, went to the sites on my liver and my lungs and removed a piece of the tumors, and then biopsied those to see if they were cancerous or not. My lungs came back clear, but my liver, that is where cancer had metastasized, which my team of doctors was very surprised about. And so that is when I was diagnosed with the stage 4 colorectal cancer. When it was first just originally stage 1, 2 cancer, it didn't feel overwhelming. We just felt more grateful that we caught it early, and we kept thinking like, oh, what could have been? And then once we got the call that it was stage 4, that was on a Friday afternoon. And so she just called to say that it had spread and it was stage 4, and she wants to see me Monday morning at 8 a.m. And that's really all the information she gave us. And so, of course, my husband was on shift at the fire department. And so I called him, told him, and he said he's going to come home to be with me. And of course, I Googled the diagnosis, and it's terrifying. Everything on there is, you have 6 months to live, potentially 8 months. And it was really hard to want to dive in and research, but then not let myself see those things and kind of protect my peace until I had more information from my doctor. So that first weekend was really hard, just being left with the diagnosis on a Friday afternoon. We just tried to hang out as a family with our boys and distract our minds, but it was really heavy and hard to think about, the reality of this diagnosis. And then when we went in Monday, it felt a little bit more encouraging that we're just going to fight this aggressively. And my oncologist felt confident that, the cancer can be removed and I could beat it, and that she would see me having no evidence of disease. So slowly the anxiety of the diagnosis didn't feel so heavy. And we just began to feel like more hopeful and encouraged to like put everything into this fight, and just, especially for our family, I have young kids. And so it was like, there's not an option for this, not for me not to be like, I'm going to beat this. So then our perspectives just switched after that. And then I kind of managed it more, as it was like a project. Like that's my background, is project management. And so every appointment and scan and blood work and was just like, okay, next thing, let's keep going. And I just wanted to get the ball rolling to get closer to that no evidence of disease place that I'm trying to get to. The treatment plan for my case, the team kind of kept going back and forth on whether we'll do surgery chemo, or surgery chemo. Just since once I had the colonoscopy and the cancer was removed from my colon, we had a specialist go in like 3 weeks after that and do another colonoscopy, and go to the site where the cancer was, remove another layer, and just be sure. They biopsied the tissue around there to be sure that there was no cancer cells. So everything was removed from my colon. Then it was just my liver that we needed to treat. So I did 4 rounds of chemo. We paused for my liver resection surgery. So then my surgeon went in and he removed 25% of my liver where the cancer was, which I'm grateful that my tumors that were cancerous on my liver are in the same area. So he was just able to remove like a corner quadrant of my liver. And then in a week, I start with my chemo again, and we're going to finish out 8 more rounds of chemo to finish my treatment. My first round of chemo, we started with a really aggressive type of chemo. And that round was really hard. Day 1, my symptoms, I was just in bed, down and out, hot flashes, sweating, nausea, vomiting, headaches, shaking. When I asked my oncologist about that, he was like, I see this in like 10% of patients. Like, you had really rough side effects. Maybe this isn't the route to go. So then for my next 3 rounds 2 through 4, they lowered me. They took off one of the drugs and they continued on with a different chemo plan. My body handled that a lot better. It was still really hard, but definitely nothing like round one. So the side effects, I would have neuropathy. So my hands tingle, my legs tingle. And that would keep me up at night as I would try to go to sleep. I was just tingling everywhere. It just felt like my limbs were asleep. And so I couldn't get comfortable. Cold sensitivity is a big one. So things that weren't even cold, like the tile in my house. Um, I mean, this was in August and September in Arizona, so it's still hot. But if I walked on the floor, it felt like I was getting like shocked. If I touched a door handle, it would shock me. If I touched anything in the fridge, I needed to put gloves on. If I when I washed my hands, I had to wait till the water was really warm. I couldn't drink anything cold. Everything was room temperature, or I would put water bottles outside in the sun and drink water while it's warm. Um, and then a big one was chemo belly, is what I would call it. And I would just always have stomach aches and feel like my stomach was hurting and upset. Headaches, nausea, hot flashes at night, fatigue, extremely tired, and then the weakness that I would try to just like get up and try to walk to the kitchen, and my legs just felt so shaky and weak, like I couldn't even carry my own body weight. And so just doing little things around the house just to get up to walk from my bedroom to the couch was just a task within itself. And each round of chemo, in my mind, I thought like my body will get used to them. Each round will get better. But it's the opposite effect that the chemo kind of stacks up each round. And so the symptoms last longer. So like round one, I go in for chemo Mondays and it's an all day thing. And then I have a pump that I have connected to my port, and I go home with that for the rest of Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays. And then I go back on Wednesdays and get disconnected. And then it's normally the days after that that are rough. So like round one was like 4 days after, round two was like 5 days. And by round four, it was like a solid 9 days of feeling these symptoms before I felt well enough to just feel good again and go outside and go on a little walk around the neighborhood without feeling like I could pass out right now. And so by round four, it took until 9 days for me to start feeling normal again. And then you just get a few days off, and then chemo starts back again that Monday. For the liver resection surgery, I didn't let myself look into it a lot. I didn't know anybody personally that had this done. One friend connected me with somebody through social media that had it, and he was really encouraging and just told me to push myself, and it's going to take time to heal. But my oncologist and my doctor kept saying, "You're young, you're healthy, like you should heal and feel better than most patients that we see going through this." Like the average age of a colon cancer diagnosis is in their late 60s and 70s. And so for me at 33, they're like, your body's going to bounce back a lot faster. So mentally I went in like, all right, I got this, not thinking a big deal about it. Until the moment they told me to say bye to my husband. And then there was a moment of like, ooh, okay, we're doing this. And then I think that the recovery was a lot harder than I anticipated because I didn't think about it much. I didn't know what to expect. And when he did the liver resection, he cut me open from right under my ribs down through my belly button. So it's like a 6-inch incision. And that was just really painful. A lot of nerve damage, burning, discomfort, and then just all the muscles around there from him going in and moving around organs and operating. My body was just super sore and weak, and just a lot more painful than I thought. And it lasted longer than I thought. It was a good 3 weeks of not being able to use my stomach at all, having to sleep on my back, having the discomfort and the pain from it, not being able to drive, just really having to take it easy. So I think it's just taking a lot more patience than I thought was necessary. I just want to go and be productive and get things done and just go back to living life. And so it's hard to like have to mentally like, no, you need to take care of yourself and just be still. And that's really hard to do. So it's just a slower healing process than I anticipated. I didn't anticipate this season to impact my mental health as much as it has. I kind of went in preparing physically. I'm going to be tired. I'm going to be exhausted. I'm going to be weak. It's going to take its toll. But mentally, I think since I went in with that project management game plan, I was just go, go, go. And it just felt like, okay, we're getting things done. We're completing tasks. I was just in that mindset and not processing. And then I had the liver resection surgery and I just had to rest for 4 weeks. And there wasn't a lot of appointments. There wasn't a lot to do. It was just sit and let your body heal. And I think that's when my mental health, I had the hardest time of just life is happening all around and people are still out, working and being able to go on date nights and hang out as a family and make plans with girlfriends. And I just couldn't do any of those things. And that was really hard for me to feel like I was missing out on, but also feel like I wasn't showing up for friends. That I just want to like love on people and be with people. And I just couldn't. And so I think that was hard. And then with each round of chemo, physically it knocks you, but mentally too, because you go in knowing how you're going to feel. And so like the day before each round of chemo, it starts hitting. I know it's coming. I can feel myself start to disconnect a little bit from my husband, from friends. And I start to isolate because I just know that like, okay, this is coming. This is going to be hard. And then that's when I think my mental health, being in the hospital, it's normally 8 hours that I'm in the hospital for chemo on that day one. It's just so heavy being around a lot of people that, aren't doing well, that are also fighting it, that have been fighting it for a lot longer than I have. And I'm a big empath. So I think that I just carry that with me while I'm there. And my heart hurts for all these people going through these things. And then I start to not feel well. And so I think each round of chemo feels a little bit harder mentally every time to go into. And then for my kids as well, they don't like when I have my pump at home. They feel really nervous around it. They kind of like look at me and have a distance and say like, oh, mommy's taking her medicine and mommy, are you going to be okay? And I can see the impact that it has on them. And so that too is hard, that my husband and I try to keep it as light and happy as we can. I think it's important for me to share my story because I never expected that this would be a diagnosis that I would get at 33. I kept pushing off my symptoms for a long time. And I just kind of wonder like, oh, if I would have taken it a little bit more serious and made those appointments, could we have caught it before it spread to my liver? And we could have not had to go through as much as we're going through. And just with articles that I see online and studies and talking to my oncologist, the rates of especially colorectal cancer in young adults are skyrocketing right now. They say in the next 10 years that that's going to be a huge shift, that they're just going to keep rising. And so it's important for me to share my story because I think that we are going to start seeing more people diagnosed with this. And I just want people to make those appointments and see their doctors, go get it checked out, find answers before, it's progressed and it has spread and treatments are looking a little bit more aggressive than if you caught it sooner. And since sharing my story, I have had friends reach out and say like, oh, I'm making all these appointments because of you. And I have been experiencing this, or, is this a symptom you had? And so just talking about it makes it feel not so isolating. When you first get diagnosed, everything is so fast and they're sending you to doctors and teams and scans and blood work. And there is an urgency to a lot of it, but sometimes it's okay to be like, I need to like meet with another oncologist, or I want to meet with another surgeon, or, you know, what are my other options? To really advocate for yourself of what you're feeling, questions that you have. If you're not comfortable with your oncologist or your surgeon, keep looking and keep asking around. There are so many great ones, and there are some that we weren't comfortable with that we switched oncologists, we switched surgeons just because we left feeling like that wasn't the right fit. And I don't think that that's who long-term I want to be with, and they're great, but not great for me. And so I say, just if you don't feel taken care of and confident with your team of doctors, to keep looking, keep searching, see if online people have made suggestions or have recommendations, and really lean into your community.